Mark Adams, and welcome to episode 35 of Marksmess Podcast. We're with my daughters, Charlotte and Katherine.
Catherine and Charlotte.
Charlotte and Katherine.
Catherine and Charlotte.
Charlotte and Katherine.
We look at the world of geekery using the alphabet as our guide, and this month it is the letter Y.
Why not? Because that's the alphabet.
If you would like to contact us, you can by email at
mymarksmess@gmail.com.
on Twitter,
At Marksmess Podcast without the T.
on our webpage, marksmesspodcast.blogspot.com, or on our Facebook page.
Marksmess Podcast.
And we have had people who have contacted us after the last episode. Katherine, would you like to read from our friends, the Sutherlands, what they said on our Facebook page?
The Irish twist in this episode was fun. I liked hearing about Irish superheroes, and the background information on the issue set in Belfast was very interesting. I always enjoy learning a wee bit of the Northern Ireland language.
The last time we talked about Irishness and different Irish superheroes and a wee bit about a Spider-Man comic for that. We enjoyed that, and Charlotte enjoyed doing the Northern Irish words a wee bit too much. But hopefully there's people around the world who are now reciting them. We did get another comment from my brother, John Adams.
Hey, Marksmess Podcast without the T. Can we have more language training segments, please? I've always wanted to learn Northern Irish, talk to communicate with my lovely nieces.
Which was...
I think it's a good idea.
No, we're not going to do that. Because this month it is the letter Y.
Why not?
It's the alphabet.
And we will keep that joke going all thing. And we're going to be looking at different things of Y, but a wee bit of news. Those of you who follow Marksmess Podcast will, of course, know about our other podcast, John Adams' Letters from the Front podcast, where we publish my grandfather's letters home from the First World War, 100 years to the month they were written. And, of course, the war is over 100 years ago now, and the letters have now finished, and we've just released a few weeks ago the last podcast in that. Google John Adams' Letters from the Front, and you'll be able to find that. And thank you to the people who've been very supportive of this family history podcast. And also, other news is we're recording a few days after Endgame has come out, and Charlotte and I went to see Endgame. So, anyway, Endgame, wasn't it so good? We're going to talk about it at the end of the podcast with full spoilers. So, after the music is over, we'll get into spoilers and we'll warn you again. I would recommend do not listen unless you've seen the movie, because it is so good. We don't want you to be spoiled by it.
And don't come and beat us up like that dude who got beat up outside the cinema in someplace.
Somebody got beat up?
Yeah, sure, he was shouting spoilers.
Yeah, I was very, very aware coming out of the cinema not to talk about it until we got to the car, because we were the first...
Morning showing.
Sorry?
Morning showing, because the previous one had been at midnight, so technically it was the second one in that day, but...
Yeah, we were basically at 11 o'clock in the morning, probably before a lot of Americans had watched it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because we rule.
Oh yeah.
British. International Dateline.
Maybe they felt bad for us for Brexit.
No, it's just the way time works. Because if it's 11 o'clock here, it's earlier in America.
Okay.
Okay, because that's the way time works. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. Anyway, this month we have got the letter Y.
Why not? It's the alphabet.
And we have decided to go for... Well, we're going to look at some things that we've been doing over the past couple of months, whether it's geeky or something else. Okay, so we're going to put these things into three categories. We either have Yikes, something that we didn't like, or Yipee, something that we did like, or Youser, something that maybe surprised us when we went for it. I'm going to be doing some things I've read and watched over the past while. Katherine is going to be talking about Doctor Who. She's basically been on the BBC iPlayer watching every episode of Doctor Who that's on there, which is quite a bit. And Charlotte is going to be doing something different. She was with her school. Do you want to tell them about it?
I was with my school in the middle of April, way to Belgium and France, about World War One and like the trenches and all that pizzazz.
Okay, so a school trip, so about things that she liked, things she didn't like, and things that surprised her in that. So we're going to start with things that are yikes, things that we thought, I didn't like that. And we're going to start with Katherine talking about the Doctor Who episodes. Can you tell us which Doctor Who episode is your yikes?
It's in the David Tennant. It's a series 2, episode 10. It's called Love and Monsters.
I remember that one as being one I've only ever watched once because I thought it was so bad.
Yeah.
It ends up with a man who's in love with a paving slab.
I don't think I've ever watched the full thing.
It was that bad.
Yeah.
I remember that at the time, the monster was actually designed by a Blue Peter viewer who sent in a design for a monster.
And it was a concrete slab.
No, the concrete slab, the monster sort of put people into the ground or something like that, melted them into the ground, and she was stopped where it was just a face.
That's kind of like the one where they're put into the walls and stuff.
But probably that one was better done.
Yeah.
Okay, that was your yikes. Charlotte, what about your yikes for your trip to Belgium? Bearing in mind this is a school trip.
Yeah, well, the accommodation we stayed in, it was Chateau or something. I'm not going to say the name because, they were quite nice. But but the food wasn't that great.
So tell us about the food you got. Was it traditional French cuisine with the soups and the cheeses and the different breads?
So for starters, they gave you a soup. You didn't have to take it, but they gave you a soup.
Like a French onion soup?
The first day, it was broccoli and cauliflower, and then the second time we had the soup, it was pea and sweet corn, yet it was orange, and the consistency was water, basically. It was. And then, I'm lactose intolerant, so I couldn't eat some stuff, and they were supposed to provide alternatives for me, and they just told me what I couldn't eat, and didn't give me any alternatives. Like the desserts, they all had dairy in them, and they didn't give me anything else. They were just like, oh well. They didn't, and for the lunches, it was baguette, which was quite stale, and they didn't provide me with butter or any cheese. But I had to have dry baguette.
But you did have a nice teacher.
I did. My nice teacher brought me cheese and butter.
Okay, my yikes. One of the channels over here has been showing sort of 5 days a week some different sci-fi shows, and they started to show Sliders. Sliders is a TV show from 1995 to 1999.
Aren't those the shoes?
I was going to say that.
I put my hand up.
Sliders is a show from 1995 to 1999 with 5 series in it. The basic premise is a young man called Quinn Mallory invents a wormhole machine that takes him to a parallel dimension where things are slightly different, where people have made different decisions. So it could be that there's somebody else doing a podcast called Marksmess Podcast.
Martin's Mess Podcast.
Could be the Martin's Mess Podcast. Anyway, that idea, he accidentally brings with him his professor, one of his best friends, and a 70s soul singer. Yeah, that bit confused me. Soul is a type of music. Right?
It's very,
No, that's people standing on your feet music. Okay, and they get stuck where they can't find their way home. So they spend a couple of series trying to find their way home. I watched the first series in a bit when it first came out. So when it came on TV now, I thought, I'll watch through it. I watched the first season, the second season, the third season, and I started getting stuck. Because after the third season, they had no direction. If you watch a TV show now, the episodes are connected one after the other. In this, they aren't necessarily connected. They could be played in any order. And that's because networks in America sometimes didn't play them in a certain order. So they couldn't really have an ongoing story. It's just the way networks worked. Now, of course, they do, and most TV shows have that ongoing story. So my yikes is Sliders, the TV show, because it had no direction, and any direction it had was really slowed down by filler episodes. I'm sort of going through the episodes and deleting ones. I think, no, that has got nothing to do with the mythos of the whole show, about them trying to find their way home. It gets really confusing after a while. I think two of the characters merge into one because of a bad slide. So if there's anybody out there who can tell me that Sliders actually gets better near the end, please do, because I might just keep on at it then. Okay, so that was our Yikes. Our next one will be our Youser, things that really surprised us. That we thought maybe it would be better than it was, or it would be worse than it was. So we'll start with Charlotte this time, about your trip to the Western Front.
So this is about the food again. We read the reviews before we went, and we thought, right, this isn't going to be a good place, but we're only sleeping and eating a bit there, so we might survive. And so the breakfast was actually really nice. They gave us warm croissant or pain au chocolat, and...
You speak it like a native.
I know. And hot chocolate, milk, coffee, tea, orange juice, cereal, and they provided me with milk, surprisingly.
Okay. Oh, what type of milk did you get?
I got soya milk.
Okay. Well,
I think it was soy milk at least.
Right. That's okay.
The bus driver was also, well, we had two bus drivers. One of them tried to run over a chicken and went, roast chicken.
And did you have... No.
He was going the wrong way. He was going through a private farm. And he was. And then the other one...
Well, a lot of these places in the Western Front are on private property.
Master said he was going the wrong way because he had been there for the past 5 years, and he said, this isn't the way we go. Then the second bus driver... I thought the bus drivers would be better, but they were worse. So it's the opposite of the food. Because the second bus driver, we were supposed to stop off at somewhere to eat before the airport because our flight was at 7 or something, and we were all starving because we were kind of malnourished. Not really. But Mr. said, we're not going somewhere to eat, and we were 15 minutes out from the airport, and he said, no, we're not going anymore. So we had to try and find something in a really, really bad airport to eat.
My Youser one is, there's a movie from 1979 called Monty Python's Life of Brian. Now, Monty Python... It is. Monty Python are a comedy people who had a TV show of sketches in the late 60s, early 70s. And it was very well remembered. But if you actually watch it, maybe half the sketches work, the other half don't work. It's a show that wouldn't be on TV now because it doesn't work really well. They did a couple of movies, and one of them was Life of Brian. And the idea of it is it's set in Jesus' time in the Middle East, and it's kind of following the man who was born next door to where Jesus was born. And I remember watching it in the 90s when I first discovered it, and it was hilarious. It was so much so that when I got a DVD player, it was one of the first DVDs I bought. It's on our shelf. I liked it for several reasons. One, it was really funny. It was really obscure. At one point, the main character falls out of a building, falls into a passing spaceship, and then gets thrown out of that spaceship. That's how he survives the fall. I'd like, just a really bizarre stuff. There's some really good comedy that's still used today. If you ever hear somebody saying, what have the Romans ever done for us? That comes from the Life of Brian. What have the Romans ever done for us? Well, they gave us aqueducts. Okay, apart from aqueducts, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Toilet.
Well, apart from toilets and aqueducts, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Roads.
See, you get the idea of the comedy. That's quite well. I also liked it as somebody who's a Christian. It challenged me as a Christian not to follow religion, but to follow what Jesus actually said about loving people. But I stuck it on a couple of weeks ago, and I got halfway through before I got bored. I think the problem I had with it isn't about the comedy. It isn't about it being set in Jesus' time. I think it's just full of cliches now. Those comedy routines have been done again and again and again. Some of it is really funny. Other bits, I had to plough through it because I knew what was coming next. It is my Youser because it's not quite as good as I remembered it, and it really surprised me. I thought it was in for a good evening watching TV, but no. Katherine, what about your Doctor Who Youser, thing that surprised you most?
It's the Peter Capaldi series 10 episodes 11 and 12.
What are they called?
They're called World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls.
And those are the last two episodes of that series. So what was surprising about it? I remember watching that with you two and your mother, and you were getting very fed up with Capaldi's season.
Yeah, I didn't get it when I first watched it. I had no idea what was happening. Because, well, partly I didn't know who the Master was.
And you mean the Master as opposed to Missy?
Both of them. I didn't know who either of them was, really.
Okay.
I liked it a lot better when I rewatched it.
Yeah, that was an interesting season. You've been watching a lot of these again and again and again and again. Some of them you watched more than others. So it'll be interesting to see what your Yipee is in a minute or two. But that one, it was quite interesting seeing you watch that, because I remember no one, apart from me, watched some of those episodes. People went, no, I don't want to watch anymore. And seeing you watch it again and seeing you get, I get that. That's the Master. I know that now. It's quite interesting seeing that develop in you. Anyway, thanks for that, girls. I'm going to take a break now and play a couple of promos of some great podcasts. And we will be back in a moment or two.
Bye!
1984, I was 10 years old, and a strange light lit up the park behind my house. In the middle of the night, still in my pajamas, I ran to investigate. A strange machine sat brooding in the dark. I stepped inside and I was taken to a far-off galaxy where I saw men, monsters, and gods fight and die. Join us again on the Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars and Beyond series, part of the Pulp to Pixel podcasts, where we will discuss each issue of the Secret Wars miniseries and their long-term impact on the characters who joined us on Battleworld and on those we left behind on the home front. Join us again on Battleworld. Return with us to our Secret Wars.
The Fantastic Cast is your guide to the Fantastic Four from the beginning of the Marvel Age of Comics.
Each week, Steve Lacey and Andy Leyland cover each issue, spin-off, guest appearance and cameo of Marvel's first family.
And in 2019, we begin our journey through the Neon Decade, the 1980s.
Join us as we cover
all-time classic runs from John Byrne and Walt Simonson.
She-Hulk and Sharon Ventura join the Fantastic Four.
The Invisible Girl No More, here comes the Invisible Woman.
Spin-off series including Marvel 2-in-1 and The Thing.
Marvel's Secret Wars, the trial of Reed Richards, and more.
Find us at thefantasticast.com on iTunes and all other podcast services.
The Fantastic Cast. Insert catchy tagline here. Wait, what?
And we're back. We're back for our third segment in our Why. We have done Yikes, we've done Youser, and we're now doing Yipee. Things that we've seen, watched, been to recently that have made us go Yippee, that we've enjoyed a lot. Mine for this is Fantastic Four, number 304 to 321. And this is a Steve Englehart run. Marvel's Secret Wars and Beyond podcast recently talked about one or two of the comics in this run, and also in Marksmess versus the Evolutionary War many years ago, I talked about the annual in the middle of this. And I thought, I'm going to give it a wee read and see if it's any good, see if I can understand what's actually happening, because the annual by itself didn't make much sense. These are the issues with the Pineapple Thing, the Human Torch, Ms. Marvel, not that one, who becomes She-Thing and Crystal. And there's a lot of soap opera stuff in this because Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman leave the team and they're replaced by Miss Marvel and Crystal, and the Thing becomes the leader. And the Thing chooses Crystal to get at the Human Torch who has married the Thing's girlfriend. So it's really convoluted. I know, that's just very hard to understand, but it's a really good run on it. Steve Englehart's writing was spot on with this. I didn't go any further than that. The next person started writing about a rogue watcher who kidnaps the Fantastic Four, and I remember some of those. That's when I first started collecting Fantastic Four, and I didn't get it then, and I wasn't about to start trying to get it now, and it involved that rogue watcher who I still don't quite understand who he is. But anyway, the Steve Englehart, I would highly recommend anyone go and read Fantastic Four 304 to 321. 321? Dusty Bin. Katherine, what is your yippee with Doctor Who? What's your favourite Doctor Who moment?
So they're all in the David Tennant.
You're such a fangirl.
They're series 4, 7, 8 and 9. It's The Unicorn and the Wasp, Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead.
Good episodes. Right, tell us a wee bit about The Unicorn and the Wasp.
They go in the 1920s and they meet Agatha Christie, and there's like a mystery and stuff.
Do you know who Agatha Christie is?
Isn't she like a book writer?
She's a mystery writer. When I was your age, it used to be Miss Marple on the BBC, and that's how I got to know her. A lot of mysteries about what would happen. Her two main characters are Miss Marple, who is an old woman who solves mysteries because, pensioners can give the time. And the other one is a Belgian detective called Hercule Poirot. What about the Silence in the Library double bill? What was that about?
The Doctor and Donna went...
Dr. Donner?
The Doctor and Donna went to this massive library, which was like in some wee girl's head or something. And then, there's these things in that make shadows and then they eat you.
And the timey-wimey bit is, who do we meet first? For the first time?
Oh, Professor Riversong.
And this is the last appearance of her if you follow her story chronologically.
I like the David Tennant ones.
You seem to. You started off liking the Matt Smith ones, didn't you?
Especially the ones with Donna.
I think that was the high point of the whole new Doctor Who series. I do. Because Donna wasn't, sort of a pretty young assistant. She was a woman with her own mind who was a wee bit older than some of the other ones he's had.
Oh, she speaks her mind.
And she speaks her mind, which is great.
And her accent. I don't know what accent it is.
It's some sort of Northern England accent. I can't tell.
It's nice and broad.
She's my favourite companion.
She is pretty good. I'm really sad the way she had to leave. The companion, not the actress. And I think the actress really enjoyed her time on Doctor Who because she speaks of it fondly. I remember when she first came on the Runaway Bride, people were very dismissive of her.
Why?
Because she's just a comedian. Just a comedian, doesn't know how to act. Why would you have her?
So's Graham. He's a comedian.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, it is, but it just showed that she was really good and she was a fine actor in the whole thing. And just in The Unicorn and the Wasp, David Tennant's dad appears on it for a second or two. And David Tennant's dad is a Presbyterian minister.
Wasn't he one of the butlers?
He was one of the butlers, that is right, because I've pointed this out before to you. Anyway, thank you, Katherine, for all your Doctor Whoing. Charlotte, what about your trip with your Yipee?
I have two things.
That's okay.
My first one is for one of the days we spent... What day was it? I think it was the Friday. We spent the whole day in Yipee because that night we were laying a wreath at the Menin Gate, which was absolutely packed.
And it always is, and they've laid that wreath every day since 1919.
And for some odd coincidence, the PSNI, which is the Police Service Northern Ireland,
that's right.
They were the band that was playing.
Mm-hmm.
But we had about an hour and a half, 2 hours to go shopping, and it was quite nice because we could buy some food then.
Right. So you didn't go buying shoes and scarves and stuff like that. You went and bought
food.
What food did you buy?
As a school, we went to this wee Belgium shop because they did an offer if you were at school. So for €11, we got a Belgium chocolate bar. I got a white chocolate one. I got waffles, but it was anything off the shelf. And then it was also a wee box of about 10 wee chocolates and also a bag of marshmallows.
Right. What was your second?
It was just the general like atmosphere because it was supposed to be my year and the year above could go, but it was only my year that did go. So it was quite nice because I knew everyone there. And we were all like quite friendly.
Now, what about the different places you went on the Western Front? I know it's very hard to say Yipee when you're talking about graves of people who died in the First World War, but what was your favourite place to be on the Western Front?
Well, I think it was the second last day we went to this grave, and it was 300 of the French on the left and 300 of the British on the right. And it was really nice because it had a really nice view. It had a massive archway, and like the French graves were across and the British graves were a wee round thing. Mm-hmm. And it had such a nice view. And it was a really nice day, even though it was absolutely freezing when we were there. It was Thiepval Memorial, and I remember being there with John and Roger. And the view, yes, the view's magnificent. It was Tyne Cot really got to me. Is that the biggest one? That's the biggest one, and just the amount of grave after grave after grave. It's hopefully something you won't forget. Yeah. I won't forget. Lest we forget. But a bit of a somber end to this, but it shows that we can look at things that we enjoy and have things that we don't quite enjoy and things that surprise us, whether good or bad, in all this. Anyway, if you would like to tell us some of your Yikes, Youser and Yipee things that you've been watching, reading and even going to, I know some of you go to the Comic Cons a lot, do let us know. Next time we are finishing our alphabet with the letter Z. What we're going to do for it, I'm not quite too sure because I'm kind of running out of ideas. Zebras. And then zebras. Yes, we'll fill a whole show with zebras. Anyway, so we'll be live from the Serengeti. We'll also give you an idea of what we're hoping to do after we've done the alphabet. We're not going to go to the Greek alphabet or go by numbers or anything like that. We're going to do something different and even use of a competition. Just a friendly wee competition. Prizes? There's a prize, but we'll talk about that next time when you join us at Marksmess Podcast, because this has been Marksmess Podcast, brought to you by the letter Y. Why not? It's the alphabet. Of geekery. All characters are property of their owners and not us. And you can contact us by email on mymarksmess@gmail.com or on Twitter
at Marksmess Podcast without the T.
Or on our webpage, marksmesspodcasts.blogspot.com, or our Facebook page, Marksmess Podcast. And thanks to Josh Woodward of joshwoodward.com for the title music. Oh yeah, and join us after the music as Charlotte and I discuss spoilers for Endgame. Okay, this is the part of the podcast where Charlotte and I talk about Endgame. Avengers Endgame. We went on Thursday morning, the first showing in daylight. I booked the tickets a week beforehand. I'm glad I did. We arrived at the cinema. There was barriers up, but we were able to walk into the cinema. We were like half an hour before the show. And I said to the woman, "Oh, it must have been packed here last night." She said, "If you were here 2 minutes earlier, you would have seen how packed it still is." We got into the cinema half an hour before the show. It was over half full. And the first time I ever had it in a cinema where somebody from the cinema came in and said, "We've sold out, make sure you bunch up in it." Have you been to the cinema like that before? No. Last time I was at the cinema, it was me, Katherine, and another family, and that was it. Right. What did you think about the film? Me, personally, it's wow. It was really good. Really, there's so much in it that in our short preview of it, or a review of it. I can't think. There are podcasts out there that will do it nice and long, and do listen to them. As I speak, there's just one out so far, which is it Jaws? Go there. I'm pretty sure Welcome to Level 7 will have theirs out, and other places that I'm going to be downloading as well. We actually wrote into Welcome to Level 7 with our top 5 things about the movie. Hopefully you've seen the movie and you know what it's like.
If you haven't seen the movie, what are you doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing here? Go away now, because honestly, spoilers here. We've got top 5 things. Okay, my top, one of my top 5 things was the writing was perfect. There were so many cameos, so many callbacks, cameo bits in the script, phrases that kept on going. And, the elevator scene, Steve Rogers getting in the elevator, and you think, I've seen this somewhere before. I know how it's going to end up out. And then you get the Hail Hydra. And it's so good, so well written, so well paced. The first part of the movie really downbeat, and the confronting Thanos was such an anticlimax. And then going through the movie with the heist bit, and then the final. Anyway, Charlotte, before I sort of get over enthusiastic, what's your first of the top 5 scenes?
Well, the movie starts off with Hawkeye showing his eldest daughter how to shoot arrows. That's the bit I like.
Yeah, there was a lot of daddy-daughter stuff in this, both with Hawkeye, with Tony Stark, with his cute wee daughter, and with Casey, Ant-Man's daughter as well, which was really good. And in the comics, Casey becomes a superhero stature who increases size. My next one it has to be Captain America holding Mjolnir, if that's how you say it, holding Thor's hammer. Honestly, this is going back to the 80s for me, with that Thor comic with the Captain holding it and able to wield it.
I did also like the Captain America wielding Mjolnir, but I also like the fact that Thor went back to get it.
Oh yeah, and he just held out his hand, and you had that thing that you get in the Thor movies of it wrecking the place on the way over.
Yeah.
And then he going, I am still worthy.
And also the podgy for Thor.
That's one of mine. The fact that I've got the body of a Norse god. The fat Thor is, personally for me, hard to say, but it is how I thought it was.
I also liked about Thor that when he summoned his other hammer, when he summoned the lightning, then his hair magically got plaited.
Yes, his beard got plaited. Yeah. My next one is when they went back to the first Avengers movie, Hulk taking the stairs. I've just thought that was so funny. That was really well done as well. He got to speak more lines than he did in the first 3 movies he was in. Oh yeah,
I like the fact that after Tony and Peter hugging so many times, this time it was actually a hug. It wasn't, I'm just reaching for the door, I'm just doing this, doing that. It was an actual hug.
Yeah, I thought that was a good callback to that movie. Another callback was when Cap stood there with his broken shield and Mjolnir, not only facing off against Thanos, but facing off against the hordes of Thanos' army. And then he hears on his earpiece, on your left. And you just instantly knew who it was, and you instantly knew what was happening. Hundreds of heroes came through. Oh, that was so good.
I like that bit as well.
Tony Stark meeting his dad and getting closure there. Seeing Ant-Man and the original Ant-Man helmet.
I like the fact that they put the Tony Stark has a heart thing on his wee grave.
Again, a callback to the first Iron Man movie. There's so many. Oh, this is just a love letter to the fans.
After they absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, but it was just so good. I mean, it keeps running about in my head. The ending, the fact that people came back, the Hulk snapping. There were 3 snappings: Thanos, Hulk, and Stark. And the Hulk snapping brought back people 5 years afterwards, and as if 5 years hadn't happened for them. I've got problems with that. Like, first of all, I love the fact it wasn't putting everything back, a reset button. I like that. And this will have repercussions. Peter Parker is now going to school with people half his class were 5 years younger than him when he was the last day he was at school. There are people out there who lost somebody in the Thanos snapping. They maybe got married again, and now their first spouse has come back. 3 hours long, my bladder survived.
I always survive.
Yes, you do, but my bladder is... I've got a wuss of a bladder. It was really good. We actually went at 11 o'clock, so we knew we'd be out at 2 o'clock, so we brought sandwiches with us for lunch.
Yeah.
And I brought a wee flask of tea. Guys, you've seen it. You know how good it was. As Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I want that to happen.
Maybe they'll change the title to As Guardians of the Galaxy.
I could see that happening. Anything can happen in this universe now. Anything at all.
I like the scene where it was Peter had the glove and he was all curled up, and then who was it came up? Who it was?
I don't know. Was it Captain Marvel the first time?
Might have been. I don't know. It was either that or your Wakandan women, and they all just teamed together and went. Bleh.
It was great. I loved that as well. I thought that was fantastic. I knew there'd be sort of people getting angry about that. How dare these women come along and that type of thing. But I thought it was brilliant.
I didn't like her haircut.
Whose haircut?
Captain Marvel's.
Oh.
I didn't like it.
Oh, the last one.
And I didn't like the fact that she didn't, when she was in space, she didn't put on the mohawk. I liked the mohawk. I did. I really did.
Okay. I don't know. I've got no idea how many heroes were in that final battle. It was so, so good. Thank you for listening to our ranting about how good it was. And we will see, we'll speak to you next month. Bye.
Bye.